then you're going to increase your serotonin and dopamine. This is more than muscle. And what if I told you that the questions that you ask yourself can rewire your brain? That's exactly what we're going to tackle today. Because I think a lot of the time people want to attack health, or they want to tackle their health by maybe changing up how they train or how they eat, or maybe some habits. But ultimately, they don't change the mental aspect. And that is actually the absolute critical component in terms of getting results. Because anyone can try to transform the physical, the external, but not many are willing to transform the internal. And so what I want to do is I want to help you understand the chemistry behind rewiring your brain, and why is it that I always ask questions? Why is it that I always talk about mindset? Because anyone can say, yeah, you've got to change your mindset, you've got to build your mindset, but what does that truly mean? Because at the end of the day, if you don't rewire your thought patterns, then you're going to continue going back to old behaviors. Yes, you might see results for a short amount of time, but ultimately nothing changes unless you start to change the way you think, because the way you think is everything. All of the thought patterns that have been accumulating over the course of time will come out in behavior. So the reason why it's so important to change your thought patterns is because they will then dictate new behavior, new habits, and then a better outcome. So the reason why I want to do this is because a lot of the time people want to know, what is it that is so unique about my approach? And it's not that I give people such a great nutrition plan and it's flexible and it's adaptable and it works. It's not that. What it is the mental side of it. I have a major component that I really love to give people to challenge them. So I support people with where they're at, but I challenge them to get to where they want to go. The reason why I do that is because I have found over the course of the last 20 years that I've been doing this, that many people get stuck. But why do they get stuck? And then why do they go backwards? Why is it that they can get some results but not last them, right? Like, why is it that they can't sustain something like a system? And the reason why I implemented this is because I wanted to start to change the makeup of the brain. In other words, I wanted to help people rewire the way that they think about things. This is called neuroplasticity. And the way that you can do this is through questions, through thinking, through mental practice. And so I say this because every time you complete a habit, dopamine is released, and this reinforces behavior. So every single time, think about it. Last time you did the same habit and you did it again and again, and you compounded it. What happened? You started feeling pretty good. You started feeling that dopamine release. You felt that promise that you kept, and then you wanted to know what it was going to feel like. So you went and did it again, and then again. And then it's actually become so habitual that you don't have to tell yourself to do it. You just go and do it because you know there's a feel good at the end of it. And that's essentially what happens every time we go to the gym or we eat a healthy meal. Now, the reason why I like to add in questions, and what I mean by questions is every day I send anyone that I work with 3 questions of the day. And these questions are made to make people think. And so much so that they may not even be able to answer the questions. Probably the biggest feedback I get is, I didn't even know how to answer that. Or it really took me a long time to come up with something. And that's because what I require from people is to look inwardly and a lot deeper than what most other people will. Because the quality of your life is dictated on the quality of questions you ask yourself. But we won't ask ourselves hard questions because that's uncomfortable. So I'll do the uncomfortable work. I'll ask people hard questions. And in these questions, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get people to understand them, right? It's a path of self-discovery, self-reflection, self-awareness, and ultimately, where does that lead? Self-control. When you have self-control, then you don't give in to temptations around food. You don't give in to external factors like people and pressure. You actually get in control of yourself. So you're not just building a routine, you're teaching your brain. And when you're teaching your brain on how to think, you get more in control of where it's going, what it's thinking about, and all of these things. These are what mental stimulation, mental stabilization is all about. So, we have to always look at it from a safety and order and a structure. So think about structure just in your day-to-day. Anytime you have structure and order, you know that you can have a little bit more of a predictability around it. And the benefit of that is then you are more in control of what the outcome is going to be. So why is it that these questions are so powerful? Well, the journaling that I get people to do It's not just about writing down what you're grateful for, because to be honest with you, that's quite surface level. And anytime I've said to people, writing down what you're grateful for is surface level, they get a little bit, annoyed by that. And the reason why I then have to go, but let me explain why. Because if you just go and write down what you're grateful for, you're only seeing a very surface level approach. As in, you might be like, I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my job. But that's so surface level. Let's go deeper than that. Are you grateful for some of the challenges that your job brings? Are you grateful for the moments that your family put pressure on you to do something that you don't want to do? Are you grateful for that? Right? Are you grateful for the struggles that you have faced in the past that have helped you become who you are today? Right? Probably not. People are only grateful for the positive and never grateful for the negative. So I don't like to ask that question as often as what other people do. I will ask it sometimes, but I'm looking for, are you grateful for the adversity? Because if you are, you will have a much higher chance of literally being able to control yourself, but you'll also have a higher chance of looking deeper and understanding that life isn't just about what makes you happy. Life is about making you understand why things happen and how often they happen, and then how to maybe avoid some of those things. Because ultimately, we bring in the circumstances that we're in, right? We are literally the subject of them. So journaling is really activating the prefrontal cortex, so the frontal part of your brain. Okay, so when you ask yourself questions, it moves into thoughts. And when you have these thoughts, basically what you're doing is you're starting to understand how you can create a chemical reaction. So anytime you have good thoughts, positive thoughts, just thoughts of reflection, then you're going to increase your serotonin and dopamine, which is a good feeling. It's the same feeling you pretty much get every time you go to the gym. Now, people don't want to do the journaling because they think that, I just can't do it. It's not made for me. I get that a lot. A lot of the time people will be like, journaling's not made for me. I can't do it. I can't just sit down and write down what I'm grateful for, or, I didn't even really know what to write. And a lot of the time it's because people think that it's just this surface level teenage concept that really was like once a good thing, but not really. Yet we don't understand that there's a chemistry about this, and that if we do this, and we do this regularly, okay, like we compound it over time, you will find that you are literally putting all this information that's stored into your brain into an organization. And when you organize your thoughts, then it makes more sense to you. You start to become more logical, less irrational. When you're more logical, you're going to act from a place of logic and less from a place of emotion, which is going to be what puts you in more control. So the reason why I implement this into my program is so that people can then be in control of the behavior that follows. A lot of the time people do maybe emotional eating. Maybe they stress eat or stress don't eat. Maybe they kind of go on these binges that they don't even realize they're going on, all because their brain is not wired properly. They don't know how to control what's going on, so they try to avoid it, suppress it, run away from it, and then go down the route, and that is how they tackle it. That's how they deal with it. It's a strategy. It's a coping strategy. That's why people don't realize that nutrition is mostly mindset, right? Nutrition is so important to understand from a chemical level in your brain, and not just this idea of you are what you eat. Like, that doesn't make much sense for people. They need to understand the why behind it, because most of the time people don't realize that nutrition is just nourishment. How did it become this correlation with emotion? Well, at the end of the day, you have to understand, why are you eating the way that you're eating? Or why are you not eating the way that you know how to eat? Because we ultimately all know what to do, yet we're not doing it. So where is there a breakdown in implementation? Where is that happening and why? And so I say that because the way that I've practiced my own nutrition and all of the nutrition amongst all the clients is most people struggle with consistency. But they won't struggle with consistency in training. They won't struggle with consistency in other areas of their life. Why is that? Why is it only with nutrition? Well, because it's the easiest one to drop the ball, right? You're not going to do personal development. You're not going to sit there and try and understand your brain or your thought patterns. You're just going to let your nutrition fall by the wayside, and you're not going to think about it. Those are the two easiest things to let go of, while you can still go to the gym and you can still show up for work. You can still kind of be there for your family, because at the end of the day, that's all seen, right? It's not unseen. It is in the unseen work that people don't want to do. They don't want to tackle their mindset, what's going on in their thought processes. They don't want to tackle why that's actually happening, that's causing the irrational behavior and how that's coming out in their nutritional choices. But that's ultimately the biggest problem. So nutrition is very much a discipline, but it's a discipline by tackling your mindset, your thought processes that then lead to the behavior. And guess what? You're either going to have to tackle this eventually by consequence, or you can tackle it by choice. It comes down to you understanding that you have that choice. And all it's going to take is just that one time, that one moment where you have hit enough is enough, where you do something about your reoccurring behavior that's leading to the body that you don't like. That's all this is. All of these behaviors stacked over time that are negative, that are not serving you, that are leading you to where you don't want to be. That's what you got to change. So let me take you to the next step that I get people to do. Journaling helps you tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest system. Another thing is breath work. Breath work is another way that you can tap into your parasympathetic nervous system. This helps you control yourself. This helps you understand how to down-regulate, right? Decompress is what people like to call it. So it will help you lower your heart rate. It'll help you lower your body temperature. It'll help you get in control of yourself. Because let's be real, living in a state of fight or flight has never served anyone for long periods of time. You can tackle it for a little bit. You can have that stress response. It's never a bad thing, but it's a bad thing if you're only in it. You have to have some balance of both systems. You can have the stress response, but you also have to have the de-stress response. If you don't have both, then you can bet that your body's going to start to change, your behaviors are going to start to change, your sleep is going to go to shit, and you're probably going to act out. That is essentially what happens to everyone out there. No one has been able to outwork their stress. And anyone that thinks that you can just keep at it over and over again, notice that they just keep starting over. And it's the starting over that makes you feel pretty damn defeated. So I'm going to encourage you to start to implement some sense of journaling, whatever that looks like for you. But make your journaling really deep, right? Intentional. Make yourself actually do and write some things down that are difficult for you, not just the surface level gratitude like stuff that's out there. Now, the next step is add the breath work in. There's multiple breath works that are out there. Don't make it complex though. If you have too many complex methods, you're not going to stick to it. It needs to be simple because simple has always been effective. It's just that people try to do the fancy stuff. Don't do the fancy stuff. Now, I want you to understand that when you do the breath work, the reason why this is so important is because it helps you kind of tap into more of a presence that you didn't have before. If you think about it, breathing and water are the ultimate to us just surviving. So if we can tap into our breath, then what we're doing is we're becoming very present. We're not allowing ourselves to get completely chaotic through the thought processes. We're staying and we're locking into breathing. And that's all we're thinking about. And then that alone is going to help you be more present. And that alone is going to regulate you. So then what's going to happen is you're going to be able to have some calming thoughts. You're going to see some clarity or feel some clarity, which is basically in your brain chemistry, right? It's all starting to align. It's starting to make more sense. It's starting to be organized. That's what makes you feel good. It's when things are chaotic that makes you feel like crap. Okay. So you got to look at it when you are clear, then you're going to be in more alignment. And when you're in more alignment, you're going to act better. So your habits are really just wiring of your brain. And you can rewire your brain any moment you decide. Any moment you decide to stop the negative self-talk, let's start with that, because every time you speak negatively about yourself, guess what? You're 100% accurate. You are right if you tell yourself you're shit. You are also right if you tell yourself that you're the best. It's really just a matter of what do you believe, right? And changing that, because you would never really tell anyone else something negative about them. So why are you doing it to you? Just be real about that. And the next step is that really understanding that your words create your identity. And if you think about that, if your words are positive, then your identity is going to be positive. If your words are negative, your identity is going to be negative. So start to think of yourself as a little more than what you truly believe, because at the end of the day, I think so many people are really hard on themselves. They talk down at themselves and then they try to kind of like hide it to other people and they put on this front, and I'm not sure what makes them believe that everyone can see it, because eventually someone sees through it. And you might be able to hide it for a certain amount of time, but that front, right, that poker face, certain people are going to know because they've probably been there. And anyone that's been in your shoes knows that you're probably just hiding the fact that inside you're not happy and you're not fulfilled. So remember, that identity is going to eventually drive your behavior. Whether it's good behavior or bad behavior, it doesn't matter. It's eventually going to drive it. So just be very mindful that if you are trying to be more positive about yourself and you're trying to rewire your patterns, ultimately they're going to identify who you really are and it will eventually come out. Okay. The more consistent you are, the faster your brain is going to rewire. So if you find that you're really good for 2 days, but then you're bad for 5, well, don't expect much to change. If you're really good for 5 days, but you're not the best for 2, then you can expect a little more to change. Because if you're consistent 70%, 80%, 90% of the time, I won't say 100 because I don't think that's realistic. If you are, then you will find that you will start to rewire your brain, you'll change faster, and you'll feel better over the course of time. And the reason why I say this is because so many people, they honestly are very inconsistent. And there's a reason why they're inconsistent. They lack belief. They don't think they can follow through. They don't know how to keep promises to themselves. They doubt themselves and they cannot for the life of them just stick it out because it gets boring. It's in the boring work. It's in the boring work that discipline is built. It's in the adversities that you face that resilience will be made. And it is you understanding that if you can tolerate the time that it's going to take to get to where you want to go and be adaptable along the way, you will land where you want to land. So just remember, guys, everything that you want is on the other side of fear. So make a move, take action, because you're one decision away from a completely different life.